Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to share with you a very imitative Chironomid pattern on Togens' new barbless curved nymph hooks. So this one's a size 16. To properly size this one, I use a 2mm or 5/64 bead, either in brown magic or black nickel works well. Semperfli's classic wax thread in 12/aught steel color. It's just beautiful for any gassed up chironomids. For one of the ribs, I'm using Togens Chrony Skin. This is holographic mocha. And then for the wing buds, Semperfli Natural Range Goose Biots. This is brown. And for my gills, I tie it in using a very thin 24/aught 20 denier Semperfli Nano Silk, and some uni stretch as well for those gills. And then the only other material I'm using is some Semper wire in 0.2mm for a little bit of segmentation on the rib sections. And then I'm going to show you a cool trick using some Semper Flash. This is their Mirage. It's about a 1/32 inch, very thin one, but I lay this down first and then I will tie in my uni stretch. You can just use about half of the thickness of the uni stretch. Very sparse gills. That's what the naturals have. It's going to be very imitative. So I'll lay down that Semper Flash first and then put this uni stretch on top, and then you can separate both those strands. And it's going to look very imitative. I like using this nano silk. It's like a 24/aught, super thin, so that you can size down your beads and they fit nicely over that. It doesn't build up too much bulk underneath that. And then for my main base here, it's a Semperfli classic wax thread. A lot of people use that UTC 70. It's beautiful stuff for chironomids, and I really love this 12/aught 70 denier classic wax thread from Semperfli. They've got beautiful range of colors. This one's a steel color, so it's a little bit darker than like an anti-static bag gassed up rib, but it is absolutely deadly in the waters. The fish just hammer this pattern, so I wanted to share this with you. I'll first tie in my Semper wire. It's 0.2mm thickness, just black. It's going to really accentuate the segmentation, and I always like to put that right on the far side of the hooks. I keep things pretty consistent in my ties, and then it helps kind of flatten out the tail section of the chironomid as well, which is just some of those minute details. And then the secondary rib I'm using is that Togens holographic Chrony Skin in mocha color. It's also been very successful to tie this pattern with their holographic wine color. Then you can go ahead and make this taper as seamless as possible. I find really skinny chironomids are very productive. That's usually my go-to, so you don't want to build up too much bulk on that taper. You've additionally got the Semper wire and that holographic Chrony Skin, so it adds a little bulk to this one. So just make sure to keep it as thin as possible. That's looking pretty good there. I'm going to wind back down, and here we're going to capture the wing buds here. So using the Semperfli Goose Biots. This is their brown color, and I like to orientate it with that concave facing upright. So those biots should be kind of pointed slightly upright, and then I tie them in that way. That way when you fold them back, you get a little bit more of a defined wing bud. The edges naturally kind of curve up away from the hook shank, and I find that looks really imitative that way. Let's go ahead and tie that in, and then nip the tips of those goose biots as close to the bead as possible. And then you're going to capture that with some thread wraps and make sure that looks as clean as possible. I like to go in behind the goose biots and kind of build up that taper as best you can. As well, you will see me counter spinning my bobbin that just helps flatten out the thread, and then it spreads those fibers a little bit thinner, which is really nice. Give it a securing whip finish into the bobbin cradle out of the way so we can make the magic happen here, setting our segmentation. So first select the Semper wire, and that will kind of lay the foundation. It's really easy to work with. You can get each wrap exactly where you want it. If you're getting a little short on the wire, you can add a pair of hackle pliers, and it gives you a good grip and good control to make sure that this lays perfect. The rotary feature of these Renzetti vices are so slick that you can see 360 degrees around your hook and make sure that every wrap counts and it's in its place, otherwise the fish will just laugh at you. This tine's not only great to catch fish, but to stroke those OCD tendencies. I really enjoy the fly tying and just the process of it. So take your time with that. Looks pretty good, and then you're just gonna helicopter that out of the way so that there's no rough edges on your wire there. Just a securing whip finish and out of the way. And then following that track of wire segmentation that you did, closely wrap this crawny skin, and you can touch it up against those ribs, which is great. I also like to put this crawny skin rib to the left of those wire wraps. It looks even more realistic, but it does kind of jump around on you a little bit, so that's where I lay it and use that wire as a guide, and then it looks really seamless. Nip that little bit out of there, and now we're going to move on to separating these gills. The naturals, they have a set of gills, one kind of on either side of their head. So that's what this Semper flash does. This is like a mirage, sort of like an opal tinsel, and it gives you a little bit of extra flash, stand out from the thousands of other chironomids when they're feeding, and then it helps split those gills. So I've liked adopting this method, and then when I go to finish my fly, rather than adding another thread in, I'm just using a brown Sharpie and coloring up that steel color of thread, and that's going to look really natural, especially when we get some resin on there and blend that in. So nip that away as closely as you can. Same with these goose biots, right up tight to the thread. There, that's looking pretty good. And then we're going to trim these gills. You want just about a bead length there. And then I'm going to do one more whip finish to cover up a little bit of that wing bud material. And then we'll go ahead and apply a Sharpie to kind of darken that thorax. What's nice then when we apply the Golf UV resin, I like using the Thin Men stuff for these chironomids. Some of that Sharpie then sort of bleeds off the thread and around the thorax and the head there. So it's a super imitative way to do it. Take your time with your bodkin, spread it out nice and evenly. You want these wire segments to really pop. That's looking so good there. And take away some of the excess. You can always wipe your bodkin clean with a Kleenex and take away a little bit extra resin. Give it a cure with the UV light, and guys, there you have it. A super imitative chironomid pattern showcasing Togens' new barbless curved nymph hooks. Be sure to give me a like and a follow if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the waters.